Hey guys, welcome to the Strange Russian School for strange people. If you're a strange person, you like to think, and you have basics of Russian, at least the basics, please welcome, because here the materials are aimed at Russian native speakers. And we're working now on this interesting article, как появился Израиль, и почему именно поэтому там постоянные войны. So, how Israel appeared, and why exactly, specifically there. You remember imena? We talked about that. Imena, like exactly, specifically. There are, what is постоянные? Remember from the previous lesson? Постоянные means permanent. There are permanent wars. So, and you're welcome to listen to the previous one, but you can also join us here. Basically, the last sentence. By the way, the link to this article is below this video, but I really recommend that you print it out. So, and the author is saying that основная причина в том, как и где появился Израиль. So, основная причина, you remember what основной was from yesterday? Основной was like fundamental, because основа means foundation. So the fundamental reason, meaning the fundamental reason why there are lots of wars there, в том, как и где появился Израиль, in the fact how and where Israel appeared. So, and then the next one we're going to take today is где, where. I'm going to read first to this whole, just look at the screen please, to this whole paragraph, and then we are going to go sentence by sentence, taking out all the words you don't know. Земля обетованная, древняя Палестина, была родиной еврейского народа еще с 13 века до нашей эры. Плюс-минус здесь возникли древние государства Израиль и Иудея, которые впоследствии переходили из рук одной империи в руки другой. Итак, до 70-х годов нашей эры, когда независимость и суверенитет были полностью потеряны. Так начались скитания евреев по свету. Получилось, что народ был, а государства своего у него не было. So guys, let's start working on that. Please take your printed materials or take your notebooks. Let's start working. So, земля обетованная, you can underline it as one expression. And it means the promised land in Russian. So, обетованная comes from abet, which is promise, but in literary Russian. So, земля обетованная would be promised land. Древняя Палестина, so древняя comes from древний, which is ancient. So, ancient Palestine, right? Была родина еврейского народа. So, была. Родина comes from родина, which is motherland. The motherland еврейского народа comes from еврейский народ, which is Jewish people. Еще с. So, с in this case means since. Since. And еще, it kind of gives the idea of going back really long time ago. So we would translate that as back since. Don't know if in English you can say it like that, but back since the 13th века comes from век, which is century, до нашей эры. So you can underline this whole expression, до нашей эры, and basically it means BC. So, до means before, нашей, our, эры, era, or era. Yeah? So, до нашей эры, before our era, meaning BC. So, земля обетованная, древняя Палестина, была родиной еврейского народа еще с 13 века до нашей эры. The promised land, the ancient Palestine, was the motherland of Jewish people back from the 13th century BC. Next one. Плюс-минус здесь возникли древние государства Израиль и Иудея, которые впоследствии переходили из рук одной империи в руки другой. So, плюс-минус здесь, that's like plus, minus here, and plus-minus, that's more or less in Russian. So, if you don't know, if it's unclear, you can underline plus-minus, like more or less. For example, это у меня займет плюс-минус 5 минут. Это у меня займет. It will take me. Plus, minus, like more or less, 5 minutes. Возникли, were established. Or actually, were, like, возникли basically means appeared or were born, right? Возникли, appear. But you can write, underline and write above that appeared. Древние, that's древняя Палестина, you remember? Древняя, ancient, древние, государства. Государством basically means countries. Like states. Государства, states. Израиль и Иудея, которые впоследствии means later on, переходили, moved. Переходили, moved. So when you have пере, it means like to change the position. One of the meaning of пере. Like, переехать means to move somewhere with a vehicle. Переходить means to move somewhere with your feet, right? But переходить might also mean to move from one hand to another, from one owner to another. So, переходили из рук одной империи, from the hands of one empire, в руки другой, to the hands of another, right? So, look how it all works together now in the sentence. Плюс-минус здесь возникли древние государства Израиль и Иудея, которые впоследствии переходили из рук одной империи в руки другой. More or less here, there appeared ancient states, Israel and Judea, which later on moved from the hands of one empire to the hands of another. Итак, до 70-х годов нашей эры, когда независимость и суверенитет были полностью потеряны. So, итак is an expression meaning and so. До, up to. So, and нашей эры, it's like our era, which means after Christ, right? So, итак, до 70-х годов нашей эры, and so, up to the 70s, like 70-х годов, 70s, right? Of our era. Когда независимость и суверенитет были полностью потеряны. When the independence, независимость, и суверенитет, sovereignty. So, суверенитет, sovereignty, были полностью потеряны. Полностью means completely. Were completely потеряны, lost. Now look how it all works together. Итак, до 70-х годов нашей эры, когда независимость и суверенитет были полностью потеряны. And so, up to the 70s of our era, when the independence and sovereignty were completely lost, были полностью потеряны. Так начались скитания евреев по свету. So, скитания means wandering with a, to wander. That's скитаться, like to move from one place to another. So, по свету means in the world. You can underline this as an expression. По свету, in the world. So, так начались, so began. Скитания, wandering. Like skitania, that's plural in Russian, so it's like, literally that would be wanderings, but I don't know if you can say it like that in English, but that's plural. Wanderings, евреев, of Jews, по свету, in the world. Получилось, что народ был, а государства своего у него не было. Получилось means it turned out. Or it happened that, basically. And not in turn, it turned out. It happened. It happened that. Народ means people. People as a nation, I mean. So I will just translate that as a nation. Государство своего. So своего means its state. Государство means state, we said. So своего like its own. So you can underline своего, its own. У него не было, it didn't have, right? So получилось, что народ был, а государства своего у него не было. So it happened that the nation was, meaning the nation was there. А государства своего у него не было, but its state it didn't have. Yeah, государство своего and the state of its, yeah, у него не было, it didn't have. Now, I'm going to read again this first paragraph, and you are going to surprise yourself, I hope, with your great comprehension. So listen, it will just prove that those lessons are very effective, and your Russian is growing. Земля обетованная, древняя Палестина, была родина еврейского народа еще с XIII века до нашей эры. Плюс-минус здесь возникли древние государства Израиль и Иудея, которые впоследствии переходили из рук одной империи в руки другой. И так до 70-х годов нашей эры, когда независимость и суверенитет были полностью потеряны. Так начались скитания евреев по свету. Получилось, что народ был, а государства своего у него не было. Can you see that? Can you understand? Perfect. Well done. Now look, now I'm going to read the second paragraph. You just try to understand whatever you can. After we work on that, you will compare your understanding, and it's gonna be much, much better. So listen. Откровенно говоря, евреи как-то нигде не прижились. И нигде и никогда их особо не любили. Так продолжалось почти 2 тысячелетия. Только к концу XIX века, когда Европа так и не приняла евреев, заговорили о том, чтобы на их исторических землях создать еврейское государство и отправить туда всех евреев. Правда, тогда эти земли были под контролем Османской империи, и проживали там не только евреи, но и арабы с турками. So now let's start working on this passage. Откровенно говоря, евреи как-то нигде не прижились. И нигде и никогда их особо не любили. Откровенно говоря is an expression meaning to tell you the truth. To tell the truth. Как-то means somehow. Нигде не прижились. So this word you can either pronounce прижились or прижились. Both are correct. And it means adapted, to adapt to a place. It comes from прижиться. Прижиться means to adapt. So when they say, откровенно говоря, евреи как-то нигде не прижились, they mean that, to tell the truth, Jews somehow, nowhere, like adapted nowhere, or didn't adapt anywhere, because in Russian you need double negation, нигде не, like nowhere not. Nowhere not adapted. So they didn't adapt anywhere. И нигде и никогда их особо, so and nowhere, and at no time, right? Никогда, like never. So nowhere and never, их, them, особо. Особо means much, basically. Особо, please underline, that's much, M-U-C-H. Не любили, didn't like. So, и нигде и никогда их особо не любили, like literally, that would be and nowhere, and never, them, much, didn't like. Now, in the proper English, that would be they, people didn't like them much, nowhere, and at no time. Yeah? Or never. Now, in Russian, they could have said нигде и никогда. They could have skipped this first E, but it's also acceptable in Russian to say и нигде, like и something, and. It's like both something and something in English. So now please see how it all works together. Откровенно говоря, евреи как-то нигде не прижились. И нигде и никогда их особо не любили. So, to tell the truth, Jews somehow adapted nowhere. And nowhere and never people didn't really like them or didn't like them much. Yeah, особо you could also translate that as really. Like them really didn't like. That's literally. Так продолжалось почти 2 тысячелетия. So, тысячелетие means 1,000 of years. So, так продолжалось, so continued. Почти, almost. 2 тысячелетия, 2,000 years. So, continued, almost 2,000 years. Только к концу XIX века, когда Европа так и не приняла евреев, заговорили о том, чтобы на их исторических землях создать еврейское государство и отправить туда всех евреев. So, к концу means towards the end. К концу. Towards the end. So, к концу XIX века would be towards the end of the 19th century. And только means only. Therefore, только к концу XIX века, only towards the end of the 19th century, когда Европа так и не приняла евреев, so when Europe, so так и не, basically it's just negation, but it's pretty much the same as не приняла, like did not accept, because принять means to accept, but так и, it just strengthens the emotion. It conveys the message that it didn't accept Jews after many trials or after a long time. Так и не. It's like didn't do something after lots of attempts, you could say. So that is the message it conveys. Заговорили means started talking, because in Russian, when you have za, one of the meanings as part of the verb, part of a verb is started doing something. So говорили comes from говорить, to talk. Заговорили started talking. So заговорили о том, чтобы, we'll translate that started talking about the fact that, or about the issue that. На их исторических землях, on their historical lands, because земля means land, on their historical lands, создать means to create, еврейское государство, Jewish state, и отправить туда всех евреев. Отправить means send. Отправить, send. Also when you send a parcel, package. It's the same word. Туда means there. So отправить туда всех евреев, to send there all the Jews. Now look how it all works together. Только к концу XIX века, когда Европа так и не приняла евреев, заговорили о том, чтобы на их исторических землях создать еврейское государство и отправить туда всех евреев. Only towards the end of the 19th century, when Europe, after lots of attempts, did not accept Jews, they started talking about the fact that, or about the topic, about the issue, that on their historical lands, to create Jewish state and send there all the Jews, всех евреев. Правда, тогда эти земли были под контролем Османской империи, и проживали там не только евреи, но и арабы с турками. Правда тогда. So правда in this case means only. Тогда means then. Only then. But правда basically it means truth. But in this case, basically it means however. It might also mean however in certain contexts, or but. So, however, then, эти земли, those lands, были под контролем Османской империи. So, were under the control of. So, Османская империя in Russian, you probably guessed it, Ottoman Empire. Under the control of Ottoman Empire. И проживали там, so проживали comes from проживать, which is, basically it's very, very similar to жить, which is to live. And lived there не только евреи, not only Jews, но и арабы с турками. So, не только, но и, that structure, that actually compares to not only, but also. Not only, but also. So, not only Jews, but also Arabs with Turks. So, what are they saying? Правда, тогда эти земли были под контролем Османской империи. И проживали там не только евреи, но и арабы с турками. However, then, those lands were under the control of Ottoman Empire, and lived there not only Jews, but also Arabs with Turks. Now please listen to this second paragraph all together and measure your comprehension. You will see that it's much, much better now. Откровенно говоря, евреи как-то нигде не прижились. И нигде и никогда их особо не любили. Так продолжалось почти 2 тысячелетия. Только к концу XIX века, когда Европа так и не приняла евреев, заговорили о том, чтобы на их исторических землях создать еврейское государство и отправить туда всех евреев. Правда, тогда эти земли были под контролем Османской империи, и проживали там не только евреи, но и арабы с турками. So you see, guys? Can you see the difference? Now, I just want to say that accepted in feminine would be приняла, with the stress on a, приняла. That's the standard. Maybe, I don't remember, but maybe the first time when I read, I put the emphasis at some other syllable. But that's приняла, just for you to know. Okay, guys, so we're going to finish for today. That's a very interesting article. I enjoyed doing it with you. And if you need my private help with your Russian, please contact me using the email below. We'll handle your Russian very well. I have a very, very good strategy and very, very good program for advancing you in Russian. But for now, I wish you happiness, health, and lots of positive thoughts. Ciao, ciao.